A peaceful visit turned hunt. What began as a simple visit to Bob's hometown, a chance to soak in the golden glow of sugarcane fields and breathe the calm air of the countryside, turned into something far different. Instead of peace, devastation stared back at us. The hollow eyes of Bob's family told a story words could not capture. Crops destroyed, fields torn apart, lives unsettled by the merciless raids of wild boars. I knew instantly this wasn't just Bob's fight anymore. It was ours. A plan was drawn, a team assembled, and so began the hunt. In the cold stillness of early morning, positions were taken across the hillside. Below us, our loyal hounds had already been unleashed, their voices echoing through the valley as they drove the beasts toward the ambush. Every move was calculated, every step a part of the strategy. Bob settled quietly into his post above the ridge, his eyes fixed on the escape route the Boars always favored. Then it happened. Out of the brush, a shadow emerged, a massive figure breaking the crest of the hill. In that fleeting second, Bob steadied his breath, locked his aim, and pulled the trigger. The shot rang out. The boar collapsed at the base of the slope. Here in the wild, hesitation is fatal. Against a creature this swift, powerful, and unyielding, survival demands instincts sharpened by years of experience and a heart that never falters. While Bob held the ridge, I secured the foot of the hill, determined to cut off every chance of escape. The hound's barks grew sharper, louder, pulsing through the trees. Then it came, a violent rush through the undergrowth. I raised my rifle, my finger brushing the trigger. Boom. One shot, clean and final. The beast dropped, the hunt perfected by the harmony between hounds and hunter. But the battle was far from over. Even as the echo of my shot faded, the GPS tracker in my hand pulsed with life. The hounds had pinned another target in a dense thicket nearby. Moving in cautiously, I knew the danger well. That thicket could swallow a careless manhole. So I waited silent, patient. The air thickened, my eyes locked on the brush. And then it burst forth in a frenzy, muscles rippling with wild fury. I steadied, held my breath, and fired. Boom! The boar fell before its charge could reach me. Experience has taught me this truth. Patience wins hunts. A reckless hunter meets chaos, but wise one turns the beast's desperation into his own advantage. The day wore on. The sun climbed high, spilling relentless waves of heat across the dirt and stone. Just as we paused to rest, another alert lit up the GPS. The hounds had forced yet another boar deep inside the underbrush. John and I moved swiftly, sliding into our designated positions, two shooters covering two angles. My pulse quickened as the brush began to quake. Then, with violent force, the boar exploded into the open. No time to think. Boom, boom. 2 shots, seamless and precise. The beast crumpled before it even had time to cry out. Every pull of the trigger, in these hills, is a vow to the farmers who depend on these fields, a vow that the soil will remain fertile and their nights free from fear. The land itself seemed to sigh in relief with every threat removed. Victory carried a sweet taste, but the hunt had one last twist waiting for us. On our way back to regroup, movement caught our eyes, a small group of boars hidden among tall grass. Their dark bodies shifted like shadows. John steadied himself, locked onto the largest. Boom. One dropped instantly, and the other scattered in panic, rushing straight toward Bob's position on the ridge. We radioed ahead, warning him in time. In the distance, more shots cracked through the fields, each one an answer to the farmer's silent prayers. To outsiders, gunfire may sound like chaos, but here it is a sound of relief, a promise that the sugarcane will rise again, untouched, and the families who live here can breathe freely once more. The devastation of wild boars. Fertile fields that once promised abundance are now mercilessly ravaged by ferocious wild boars, capable of wiping out millions of dollars worth of crops in a single night. For the farmers, these raids are not just destruction, they are heartbreak. And for the hunters, standing idle is never an option. A decision is made. The beasts will be tracked to their very lairs, and justice will be restored. The question remains, do they have what it takes to extinguish this relentless threat? What follows is a series of breathtaking confrontations and tense ambushes, Moments that will grip you until the final shot. Watch closely and decide which moment leaves the deepest mark. On a hillside thick with tangled brush, a hunting team swiftly moved into position, spreading out to surround the danger below. At a choke point along the ridge, a sharpshooter spotted the dark silhouette of a boar slipping from the cover of trees. He didn't wait. The rifle cracked, echoing across the slope. The beast fell instantly. One precise, decisive shot. And with that, the stage was set for the battles to come. Across the western slope, Nick scanned the opposite ridge through the cool glass of his scope. Minutes stretched in before a boar emerged, creeping to the tall grass, searching desperately for cover. Nick exhaled slowly, shifted to the perfect angle, and squeezed the trigger. The crack split the air, and the animal collapsed into the grass. Its fight over before it began. Another threat erased. Another promise kept to the land. Yet the hillside was far from quiet. In a corner shadowed by thick brush, an ambush erupted. A hunter tracking faint trail suddenly found himself face to face with a beast hidden deep in the undergrowth. In that instant, instinct took over. Rapid fire rang out, thunderous and sharp. The boar toppled in the very spot it had thought safe, its surprise proving fatal. Moments later, gunfire echoed from every direction, a chain of shots signaling victory after victory. The hunters had gained the upper hand, pushing back the tide of destruction one battle at a time. Deep within the dense thickets of Hungary, John and his team arrived determined to halt the devastation. Every step was measured, every sound a potential clue. The ground bore fresh signs of wild passage. The team spread out, each man following the whispers left by hooves and snouts. Soon, they spotted them, a group of boars, unaware of the hunter's presence, foraging lazily as though the land belonged to them alone. John waited, timing his breath with the rhythm of the forest. Then, a pull of the trigger, and in a heartbeat, two of the beasts collapsed. The third bolted, crashing wildly through the brush in a desperate bid to escape. But John was ready. With a quick signal through the radio, his teammates tightened the net. The message came through. The escape route was locked down. John moved with purpose, eyes sharp, until the dark figure broke into his line of sight. Without hesitation, he fired. The bullet struck true. The boar collapsed instantly. Its attempt to flee ended in vain. Another tally. Another moment where discipline and precision had triumphed over chaos. Elsewhere, the hounds were alive with sound, their barks cutting through silence. They had found the scent and were driving it forward. Every bark grew louder, every echo a promise that the prey was closing in. The shooter stood ready, rifle firm against his shoulder, every sense sharpened by anticipation. The thicket shook, the boar charged into view, its speed and strength aimed toward the cover ahead. But it never made it. A single shot, delivered with perfect timing, dropped it before the thicket could swallow it whole. Another menace gone, another victory for the hunters, and one more step toward peace for this battered land. The heartbreak of destruction, months of sweat, of toil, of endless days beneath the burning sun had led to this moment. The season of harvest, the time to reap what we had sown. But instead of joy, we were met with heartbreak. The sight was crushing. Rows of cornstalks lay broken, their golden cobs ripped apart, the field scarred with the unmistakable signs of devastation. The culprits were clear. A rampaging herd of wild boars had struck in the night, turning months of hope into rubble in a matter of hours. Dreams shattered, hard work undone. But we refused to surrender. Rifles in hand, we set out, determined to take down the invaders who dared to violate this land. This cornfield, my family's pride, the place where generations had poured their lives, was now a battlefield. Devil and I stood amid the wreckage, silent witnesses to the destruction. No words were needed. The ruined stalks told their own story. Then, without warning, the culprit revealed itself. A massive shadow broke through the rows, black and furious, charging like a storm. My rifle rose. Shots cracked through the air, one after another. The beast staggered but kept pushing, thrashing wildly in its desperate bid to escape. I didn't falter. My grip stayed steady. My eyes locked firm. Then one final shot. Direct. Deadly. The boar collapsed where it stood. No destroyer, no matter how fierce, can overcome us. We are the guardians of this land, hunters born from this very soil. Out in the field, the hunt was anything but easy. Every row of corn, every ditch and hollow, was a perfect hiding place for these beasts. As we crept along the irrigation ditch, Devil suddenly tensed, his rifle raised. I knew that signal. A moment later, the undergrowth exploded. A ferocious boar lunged across our path, cutting us off with terrifying speed. Devil fired instantly. The first shot drove the beast into a frenzy, sending it crashing to the tall grass in chaos. But before it could vanish, a second shot rang out. Clean, precise. The beast dropped lifeless to the ground. Another destroyer silenced in the heart of our field. Because here we protect what's ours. No invader leaves unchallenged. The rustling of corn rows broke the silence again. This time, 2 wild boars burst out together, tearing through the thicket like shadows in motion. Caught off guard, I found myself alone in their path. The chaos was instant. My rifle rose and fired rapidly, chasing their frantic charge. Boom! Boom! One fell hard, collapsing mid-stride, dead before it could reach cover. The other, however, was faster. In the blink of an eye, it slipped away, vanishing into the dense brush before I could line up my next shot. A reminder that the hunt is never simple, and victory is always fought for. But I wasn't alone. Zero, my loyal hound, was already on the trail. His instincts kicked in, his body cutting through the stalks in pursuit. In a flash, he clamped down on the beast's leg, halting its escape. It struggled, but the fight was over. Devil moved into position, rifle raised. One pull of the trigger, and it was done. The massive body crumpled, limp and lifeless. A textbook takedown. A perfect display of teamwork between man, dog, and rifle. Another menace removed, another small victory for our field. The hunt pressed on. As we reached the hillside, the silence shattered once again. From the thicket came the fierce barking of our dogs, their voices warning of danger close at hand. I moved quickly. Then, in a flash, the beast broke free. My rifle was already raised. Boom! The shot hit true, dropping it instantly. Its body tumbled backward, rolling down the slope. My heart pounded. A split second slower, and it might have been me falling in its place. The sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the land. But the hunt was not done. In the dimming light, I caught the faintest rustle. 2 boars burst out from the brush, one after the other, desperate to escape. This time, I was ready. Years of experience guided my hands. The first shot dropped one where it stood. The second bullet chased down the other, catching it before it could vanish into the undergrowth. Both collapsed, the threat silenced in the space of heartbeats. The tension finally gave way to relief, the weight of the day slowly lifting from my shoulders. As the last rays of sunlight stretched across the battered cornfields, we trudged back to the village, weary but triumphant. Sweat soaked our shirts, rifles heavy in our hands, the trophies of the hunt slung across our shoulders. The destruction we had witnessed still burned in our minds, but so did the victories. This land had been scarred, but it would rise again, and we, its guardians, would always be here to defend it. The global threat of wild boars. Across the world, wild boars have risen as one of the most destructive forces facing agriculture. These beasts tear through fertile lands, leaving behind nothing but ruin. Farmers have tried fences, traps, and countless deterrents, but when every method fails, only one choice remains. The hunt, not for sport, but for survival, to protect the fields, the harvest, and the lives bound to the soil. Today, we take you into the harshest landscapes where humans stand face to face with wild boars in battles that push them to the very edge. Heart-pounding confrontations, flawless ambushes, precise shots, and encounters that brush against death itself. This is the struggle for balance, the fight to reclaim the land from a relentless invader. And every moment, every decision, carries the weight of survival. All of it unfolds in today's story. Hunting in frozen mountains. Hunting wild boar in frozen, snow-covered mountains may sound like madness, but for Ethan, it was a mission he could not ignore. His family's crops had been ravaged too many times, and the responsibility to protect them fell squarely on his shoulders. The cold bit deep, temperatures plunging far below zero, yet he pressed on, with every step. The snow crunched under his boots as he traced the sharp imprints of hooves etched into a white blanket ahead. When the first shadow emerged, the wild boar stood broad and defiant against the silence of the mountain. Ethan steadied himself from a high vantage point, tucking low behind a boulder, hidden by stone and snow. Time slowed as he raised his rifle. Then, a thunderous crack split the frozen air. The shot was precise, devastating, and final. The beast dropped, sinking into the snow. But victory brought no rest. The mountain remained alive with danger. Ethan pushed forward, his breath turning to clouds in the icy wind. His body braced against the unforgiving terrain. Every ridge promised another ambush. Every hollow could be hiding another boar. Through the biting winds and blinding snow, he advanced. The hunt was not just about one shot. It was about endurance, survival, and a relentless drive to defend what mattered most. And as long as the mountains hid these destroyers, Ethan knew he would not stop. Chasing boars in the Southwest. Amid the rugged mountain ranges of the American Southwest, Noah stepped into a hunt that would etch itself into memory. The land was harsh, carved with jagged cliffs and shadowed forests, a place where survival demanded vigilance. From the edge of the trees, movement caught his eye, a wild boar, quick, cunning, and on alert. Noah steadied his breath, rifle already chambered, waiting for that one perfect opening. Then it came. A massive male stepped into view, broad and bristling with strength. In an instant, Noah squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared, and the beast collapsed into the dirt. But triumph was short-lived. The echo of gunfire sent the nearby herd into chaos, breaking into a frenzy of movement that thundered across the mountain slopes. Noah had no choice but to follow. The chase erupted across steep, rocky cliffs, every step dangerous, every breath tight with tension. The air was filled with pounding hooves and the echo of his own pursuit. The herd twisted and turned through the rugged terrain, desperate to escape. Yet Noah pressed on, driven not by glory but by necessity, his determination sharpened by the knowledge that these invaders threatened everything his community worked to protect. This was more than a hunt. It was a battle of endurance, of will, and a survival against a relentless enemy. And for Noah, there was no turning back. Farmers fight back. Caleb, a hard-working farmer, could no longer bear the sight of his fields being torn apart night after night. The endless damage had pushed him to a breaking point. Refusing to watch helplessly any longer, he made a choice to take matters into his own hands. With rifle in hand and determination burning inside him, Caleb rallied a few close friends who shared the same struggle. Together, they formed a patrol, sworn to defend their land from the relentless destruction. Their greatest allies were sharp-nosed hunting dogs, trained to pick up the faintest scent and lead them to the threat. It wasn't long before the dogs caught a trail, pulling the group deep toward a hidden patch of brush where a herd of boars lay in wait. The farmers tightened their grips, hearts pounding as they prepared for what was to come. Then the stillness shattered. Gunfire erupted, echoing across the fields. Each shot fired with precision and resolve. One shot, one kill. Target after target fell. The herd scattered in panic, but the farmers pressed forward, unrelenting, determined to finish what they had started. For Caleb, it was more than hunting. It was about survival, about protecting the soil that fed his family and community. Every pull of the trigger carried the weight of his livelihood, and every fallen boar was one step closer to reclaiming peace for the land he called home. Baiting in Texas. Deep in the thick forest of Texas, Isaac decided on a daring strategy, baiting. He prepared a mixture of corn and fermented fruit, its powerful scent certain to draw the wild boars in from miles away. With patience and precision, he placed the bait and then chose his ground carefully, selecting a spot that offered both a clear line of fire and solid cover to shield him. The forest fell quiet, the air heavy with anticipation. It didn't take long before the plan worked. A massive boar emerged from the shadows, lured by the irresistible scent. It lumbered forward, unaware of the danger that waited in silence. As it lowered its head to feast, Isaac steadied his rifle. His breathing slowed, his focus locked on the vital point. Then, with a single decisive pull of the trigger, The silence shattered. The shot rang out sharp and powerful, landing with precision. The boar dropped instantly. The hunt executed perfectly. For Isaac, this wasn't just a tactic. It was proof that patience, preparation, and precision could turn the tide in a fight against one of the most destructive invaders of the Texas wilderness. Strategic hunting. High in a rugged mountain region, Mason chose a strategy unlike any other. He didn't rush blindly into the hunt. Instead, he spent long hours patiently observing, studying the movement of wild boars and memorizing their patterns. Every sound, every trail, every broken branch became part of the map he built in his mind. Only when the moment was perfect did he finally act. A single wild boar emerged from cover, unaware of the watchful eyes tracking its every step. Mason's finger tightened on the trigger. One precise shot echoed through the valley, and the beast dropped instantly. But the mission didn't end there. From his flawless ambush point, other boars nearby stumbled into view. None escaped the steady aim of his rifle. Within minutes, the threat was eliminated, the hunt complete. Mason's patience and precision delivered victory, protecting the farmlands at the foot of the mountains from ruin. Ambush at the forest's edge. Last night, Cody called with urgent news. He had seen wild boars storm into his field, tearing through the soil like they owned it. At first light, we want to confirm. Fresh footprints stamped deep into the damp ground, patches of torn grass scattered everywhere. Clear signs of their invasion. There was no doubt. They had already begun moving in. With no time to waste, we grabbed our rifles and headed out. The grassland at the forest's edge, the very route these marauders often used, was where we chose to make our stand. We set up an ambush on the southern side, an open stretch with little cover. The only option was to stay completely still, silent as stone, waiting for the prey to walk into range. Unexpectedly, within minutes, the shapes of a herd emerged in the distance, dark shadows moving fast. The silence shattered in an instant. Gunfire roared across the field. I missed the chance to bring down the lead, but my aim caught several stragglers in the rear. Young by size, but young does not mean harmless. Even these smaller beasts carry destruction in their path, and perhaps they were the very ones that ravaged Cody's crops just hours before. Savannah, who rarely joins our hunts, had come along this time. The devastation had finally pushed her to fight back. From her perch on the hunting stand, 2 wild boars suddenly burst into view. She steadied her hands and made the shot count. A heartbeat later, another boar came charging out, reckless and loud. I reacted on instinct, raising my rifle and firing before it could vanish into the grass. Within seconds, the beast collapsed. Wild boars are known for their wariness, for detecting human scent from great distances and retreating without a sound. But these had grown arrogant. They had lost their fear of human scent, even of the thunder of rifles. Not far away, Cody spotted one sprinting across the open grass. He didn't hesitate. Shot after shot rang out until one finally struck true. The boar staggered, then toppled into the thick greenery. It was classic Cody, persistent, decisive, and effective. We began spreading across the field, moving in lines, combing through every bush and corner, tightening the net. The low grass offered no real shelter. Sooner or later, the enemy would reveal itself, and when it did, there would be no escape. Suddenly, from behind a tree, a massive boar exploded into motion, desperate to make it to the thicket. But it was too late. Cody adjusted, took aim, and fired. The bullet struck home. The beast let out a scream, crumpling where it stood. He approached carefully and delivered a final shot. Experience had taught us never to leave a boar with even the smallest chance of rising again. On the far side of the field, where dry grass stood taller and thicker, I moved with slow precision, each step measured. Then came the faint rustle, sharp and sudden. A boar emerged, its form fully exposed. I didn't hesitate. 2 shots straight to the front ended it instantly. In this ambush, the forest edge had turned from their passageway into their graveyard.